Bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this regular public meeting of the Dieppe City Council this July 11th. And as you already know, I'm sure, I'd just like to warn you that there will not be a meeting in 2 weeks. In the summer, there is only one meeting per month, unless there is a special need, in which case we will make a general announcement. Now, we will open the meeting by saying, dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I would like to open the meeting. And do we have a confirmation of quorum? Clerk, yes, it's been confirmed. Conflicts of interest. Has anybody indicated that they have a conflict of interest this evening? Not at all. So let's move on to the adoption of the agenda. I would like a motion for the adoption. It's been moved by Madame Laboutier and seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question, no questions? All of those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. And the agenda has been adopted as presented. We now move on to number 7, presentations, inquiries by council members of the Kodiak Regional RCMP. And I'd like to welcome Sergeant Major, Staff Sergeant, Mr. Fortin. Good evening. If there we go, your mic is open. So good evening to you too. Do you have anything to share with us this evening? No, I have nothing particular to share with you, except that we're talking about the provincial team that is coming back here this week. So once again, these are the staff, and I know that in a lot of the complaints in Dieppe are based on noise levels, so we're going to try and use the provincial team to address that issue. But maybe you have questions for me? Well, that's the next step. Do any of council members have questions? Ms. Turgeon-Roy? Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, there have been questions and comments for the last year now. We've been municipal councillors for a year already, and it comes back often. People ask us what's going on with the RCMP actions in terms of the noise level, especially downtown. And I know I don't live downtown, and I know we have a problem with noise in our neighborhood as well. For the last year, we've been asking what we can do. And yes, once again, you've mentioned that the provincial unit is going to come to Dieppe. It might make a difference, but I'm not sure it'll make an enormous difference because the complaints come to us every week. So it's not just once a month, for example. But what I'm wondering, when we did our research, when we tried to figure out what we can do as a city council, well, our actions are limited, but it always comes back to the fact that it's a provincial act and the RCMP is the one responsible for enforcing the provincial act. So we thought that there had to be amendments at the provincial level that were necessary. So I was wondering if, as a municipal council, if we can request officially from the RCMP, what can we do? What can we answer our citizens who ask us about it? And can we work together on a solution? As I mentioned, it's as a council, we are limited in what we can do, but can we help you do something? Perhaps become leaders and ask the Association of Municipalities to help us out as well. But I think that's where we're at right now as a city, as a municipality. As I mentioned earlier, it's something that comes frequently. Yes, there is a problem of speed, of course, but noise is becoming more and more omnipresent throughout the whole municipality. So what can we do? Well, I can give you a little bit of background. For us, it's the Motor Vehicle Act, of course, that is our enabling act, and the act talks about excessive noise. So what is the definition of excessive noise? Well, certain provinces have different decibels as a limit. So as soon as you have that in the act, it becomes much easier because you have an instrument that will uh, read it, a, a gauge to measure the decibels, and it's black or white. It's either below or above the limit. If you have too many decibels, you're exceeding the limit. But here we have to determine what is excessive noise. Exhaust, uh, mufflers, mufflers, if they're made at the plant, well, they have a certain level of decibels, and they're compliant with the act. But if you could go to a store, if you can read, you can buy special mufflers that are full for closed circuits only, but people still install them on their cars. So for a police officer, whether it's the Kodiak Regional RCMP or anywhere else, it might not be an excessive noise. So difficult. It's difficult to come to court and describe what is excessive. What you can't measure the gauge. So when you arrive before a judge and you try to explain what excessive noise is, you have to determine, you have to explain what you're talking about, and it becomes very, very complicated. Of course, if a car is right in front of you and he starts to screech his tires, well, there's something that you can explain to the court. But when you're talking about excessive noise, you have to be able to explain to the court. Is it louder than a city bus? Is it louder than, I don't know, a construction site? So that's what we're facing. It's, you have to, when a company makes a certain type of motorcycle, sometimes they're already louder than other cars that are stock. But when you come to the court and you have a normal car that is sold like this, or a motorcycle that is sold like that, you have to explain what excessive is, and that's the difficulty. So we've started a new project. It's just 2 weeks ago, and what we did, based on the Motor Vehicle Act, police officers, when he sees a vehicle that they feel isn't safe or has been modified in one way or another, we can ask for a mechanical inspection. So we have contacted a local garage that is well known, has a good reputation for vehicle inspections. So when a police officer, because the police officer's interpretation of excessive is just an interpretation. But when we see vehicles that are a little louder than other vehicles under the Motor Vehicle Act, we can ask for a vehicle inspection, a mechanical inspection. Now, of course, we have to be careful because we're getting involved in people's lives here. If you're asking for a vehicle inspection, you have to base it on something. Of course, I mean, if the muffler is broken, you can say it's because you have a broken muffler, but we have to be careful, but we can try and use that. So with the using the Motor Vehicle Act, we can ask for a vehicle inspection and we can give them a certain amount of time to do the inspection, to have it done. And if it's not done within that time frame, well, then you can give them a ticket for not respecting the conditions. So the car will go to this garage and be inspected. But what we thought was in excessive noise, the garage may say, no, that's acceptable, it'll pass. So this is a pilot project that's underway. It started 2 weeks ago, and we want to start up very slowly to see how it proceeds, how it unfolds, because we also know how we're going to adjust if we have to appear in court. How can we use this pilot project? I mean, um, there are certain noise levels that are still legal under the MVA. So we have a few cases that we're going to follow and see how they proceed. And if it's something that can be done by the municipalities, it's to define what is excessive. Because if they come up with a certain decibel level, it's much easier. It's like tinted windows on a car. There's a maximum level of tinting that is acceptable. So for us, it's easy because it's either black or white. It's yes or no. It's either tinted at 20%. Well, we have a device to measure that, and it'll give us a reading, and either it's 20% or less than that, or higher. It's easy. It's like the breathalyzers. It's easy. It's a tool. It's recognized by the courts, and there's no interpretation possible. But when you talk about excessive noise, it's open to interpretation. So if I understand correctly, we have to have some sort of measure. We have to decide and define what is excessive. So are you saying that the municipalities can define that? Well, I don't know because it's not so much the municipalities, but the citizens can push for change more. We're just here to apply the act. If there is something we can recommend things that should be changed, but the push has to come from the citizens, from the municipalities. They're the ones who can push for that more than the police. So we go into that in that direction. We define excessive noise, and then we take the steps necessary to have the act amended. And then we talked about different instruments. We know there are devices to measure the decibel level, and I know that you don't have it at the RCMP. No, we don't have any, but you say that we don't need to buy them because it wouldn't give us anything because there's no benchmark to measure against. So it's now this is a conversation that has to be held with the crown as well. The whole legal council has to be consulted to see, okay, how do we proceed? How do we adapt? How do we develop a case law? Because it's all well and good to come out with acts, but it's the case law that follows the act that becomes the act, the law in effect, and how is it's going to be applied. So it'll be nice to have an act, but then we need benchmarks. It won't be a final solution for all problems, but at least it will give us a benchmark. If we say this is an acceptable level, and this is excessive, because when a police officer is before the courts, he has to explain what excessive means, and that's very difficult. Well, as a counselor and a representative of my citizens, I'd like us that we recommend that we go forward on this, that we develop an action plan, and if we can have your support on this, that would be marvelous. Well, for the RCMP, for us too, that would simplify our lives. So this is very new. It just started 2 weeks ago, and we're going to see how it unfolds. Because once again, it's the police officer when they're on patrol or when they do road checks, and if we hear vehicles that are much louder than others, well, that's when we can try. And of course, we have to be careful because it can be a little delicate. It can be a gray area as well. So, well, until then, can we ask residents to make complaints? Yes, they can complain to the Kodiak Regional RCMP, and the phone number is on the website. Yeah, 857-2400, unless it's an emergency, and then they call 911, of course. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the information, Ms. Boudreau. Thank you, Your Worship. I fully agree with everything that has been said. It would be really useful for us to all work together to come up with a solution. My question is on whether or not we can get exact figures for what happened during the holidays. For example, there was Canada Day. Were there any accidents, collisions? Well, a number of reports are found on the CRPA website. I think they're divided by municipality, I believe. Okay, the only thing I found was by monthly reports. Yeah, but not on the exact day. It's just monthly reports. For Canada Day or for another celebration, I can't find out exactly. Yeah, that becomes difficult. It's also time consuming to do that by day. We have a certain number of analysts and they have their work to do. And if they start determining the statistics for each day. Now, if there's something specific on one day, we can get statistics on one day, but to do it on week by week, it's already very difficult. Well, it's just out of curiosity. I just wanted to see how we manage these major celebrations in the big cities. Well, generally speaking, when there, it's even if there are a lot of people that get together, it's not necessarily much busier for us. It's just it a normal Wednesday night might be very busy for us, but a big celebration would not necessarily bring more workforce. There's all sorts of stories on the full moon as well. Mr. Brito, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor, because she's already said what I wanted to raise, so I don't want to repeat anything. But I'd like to point out to you that, well, I receive complaints as well frequently, and I'm told that from 6 to 8 or 9, uh, that's when people get out of work, and that's when they're driving around, and that's when they want us to hear their cars. It's as if they're doing it on purpose to come close to the buildings here on Paul Street, for example, or Sunset and Champlain, and they 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 really push their engines as far as they can. And so people ask, well, where is the RCMP? I mean, how can they stop them? How can they arrest them if they don't, they're not even in around? So that's my question. Perhaps we could have more visibility. Or some people were saying, well, the guys are sitting in their car somewhere, they're not going to hear this noise. They really have to see them, they have to be listening to them. But like you were saying earlier, if you had a tool and device to measure decibels, but once again, what would it give you if you could? And even the same car, the same vehicle between two big buildings with a under cloudy skies is going to be a lot louder than when it's driving along Champlain Street in a wide open space. So that plays into it as well. The urban design, that's something, the echo will bounce between buildings and that increases the noise level. So you're going to hear it a lot louder because it's caught between buildings. Yeah, and on the other hand, I'm trying to explain that us as counselors or the RCMP, I always tell people we do what we can. We work with the RCMP, and we can't settle all of these problems all day long. We have to be patient. We're in a city that it is a busy town. There's a lot of traffic between Dieppe, Moncton, and Riverview. So I ask people to be patient. And this is the summer. We're going to hear these vehicles frequently. I even noted at one point that in Dieppe, I live in a residential neighborhood, but I mean, we hear the ambulance sirens or fire trucks 3, 4 times a day, sometimes the RCMP, and these are loud sirens, and we hear them. Either they're from Moncton or from Dieppe, we hear them. That's part of the noise, just like cars. It's just you have to be patient, and we try. We do have some certain number of staff to deploy, but we have 50,000 complaints that we get every year. So, the crime rate, I mean, I'm not saying that's the noise complaints are not serious, but if there's 75 calls that come in on a certain shift one evening, we have to respond to those calls. So we have to prioritize as well. Do you want to have two officers standing on a corner somewhere and not being able to respond to calls? So it's not that it's not important, but you can be on a street during 2 hours, but as soon as we leave, uh, it starts up again. So, I mean, if somebody sees a police officer there, they're not going to turn their noise level up in the car. It's like stopping at a red light. If they see a police car, they're going to stop at a red light. But it's very rare that we stop somebody for running through a red light when we're sitting there in the car. So it might prevent people from going up sunsets, revving their engine to the max. They might stop while we're there, but as soon as we leave, they're going to stop again. So it's like playing cat and mouse. So it's a question of, picking them up one at a time and sending a message. Well, I think it would be better for us in terms of deploying our resources. It would be better to deploy. Or yes, I mean we do have roadblocks, and I forget how the word we do. Yeah, we do stops, road checks, and I mean, we do some stops and checks regularly, but it only gives what it gives while we're there. But as soon as we leave, if there's a problem, it's going to come back. So yeah, so thank you again for that, and we do see improvement, and I'd like to encourage you to continue and to, you know, double down on your efforts if necessary, but we realize that the work is being done. Thank you, Mr. Fortin. And we'll keep you up to date on the project, how it's working, and as it proceeds. We're just starting, I mean, but it's slow going.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Your Worship. Um, we have we've had traffic light change in Le Marais, and I just wanted to know if have you had any feedback on it? Maybe it's too early to hear that. Maybe it'll take another month, and but I think it's too early to tell right now. But there's always like a period of adaptation. Um, and if we started giving tickets right away, that would be poorly received. But so there is an adaptation where you have to wait for. Well, I would like to see, in the coming weeks, if you hear feedback on that, it would be great to hear from that. Was was it just new signs that were set up? I think our director of communications is on Zoom. Could you answer maybe, Annie? That would help to know. Yes, can you hear me? Yes. Yes, it was published in social media, and we had a huge amount of feedback, both positive and negative. And we also sent out a communique or a press release to media and on our website. When was it published? When was that information published? I think it was last Thursday. Okay, so it's really new. It's all it's brand new there, those lights. Okay, is that everything? Any other questions? Okay, I do have a question. You mentioned that there was a municipality or a province that had put a ceiling on the level of decibels. I think it was in Quebec or Ontario. I can't tell you exactly which municipality, but I'm assuming it's in one of those two big provinces there. And is it a recent thing? Do we know? No. Okay. Well, we'll ask our favorite counsel to do or a favorite lawyer to do a bit of research and see if there's a if there's a positive experience that would encourage us to kind of head in that direction. And then we could go to the provincial government and say, hey, here's what's happening elsewhere. And although there's already been a good initiative to prepare us to install cameras on highways, and so now it's going to be the owner who will have responsibility. And I think they did first reading of that bill last week before they closed for the summer. And so that's an interesting initiative. They seem to be interested in heading in that direction because all the municipal associations are putting a lot of pressure on the provincial government, and that'll just give you another tool essentially.
Je peux même vous
Mr.
donner un petit peu
Simard, I can give a bit of information. In Quebec, there was a pilot project from 2013 to 2018, and it became mandatory in 2019. So 100 decibels for a car, 90 decibels for a cyclomotor, 92 decibels, uh, and so and so they've established limits in Quebec already. All right, so that gives us a few tools that we can work with. Well, we're now more knowledgeable, if not more intelligent, at least more knowledgeable. All right, thank you for your patience with us, and thank you for your support for our complaints in that regard. All right, next item, questions by members of the public. Did we receive anything? No, okay, so we received nothing. Electronically, or is there anybody in the room that is here to ask a specific question? I don't see a lot of movement in the room, so that means that there's nothing else for that point. All right, that brings us to the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on June 27th. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor and a seconder. So no questions. In favor, say yes. Against, say no. All right, so the minutes of that meeting is passes as in its current form. 10, Mr. Melançon. All right, our first topic is our request from the District Scolaire Francophone Sud for regarding external commercial signage. That's a request for exemption by law Z22. And so the bylaw does allow for exemptions in these types of situations. So, and that will be, this will be a request that will come back on an annual basis. So we recognize, or we recommend that it be granted. All right, so Ms. Boudreau, would you read the motion? So that the council authorize the District Scolaire Francophone Sud to proceed with unilingual francophone external commercial signage until further notice. All right, motion by Conseiller Boudreau, seconded by Councillor. Those in favor say yes, against say nay. The motion passes. All right, that brings us to finances, Mr. Melançon. Oh, well, we have 10.1.2 that we have to deal with as well. So the first one deals with sale of land parcels on Marché Street and Gauvin Road. And we're talking about the MC Hotels and Resort. And these were small parcels that were that had to be incorporated into that project. So that's the first directive that we're dealing with tonight. The second deals with a parcel under PID 7030737 and 008195999 located on Melançon Road at the cost of $12,536 for the Bourke Road reconstruction project that was started last summer. The third directive deals with the the authorization of ProDev consultants to undertake a project management services at the cost of $50,000 and KUB Architecture to undertake the architectural and engineering services at the cost of $75,000 for the 10-unit building on Melançon Road. So we're relocating a building on Melançon Road. The fourth directive that we're making public deals with a memorandum dated June 15th for the YQM Country Fest to be held on over 2 days on August 26th and 27th. So the contract was modified. And the fifth directive is with regard to the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority. So Benoit Bolland and is to replace Robert Arsenault for a term ending June 26th. 2025, and Councillor Corinne Gouldeau to replace Councillor Jean-Marc Brideau for a term ending June 12th, 2023. So those are the directives that we're making public tonight. All right. Thank you. Are there any questions? Well, perhaps we should read the resolution or the motion. Ms. Leboutier.
Que le Conseil ratifie les directives adoptées lors de réunions du Conseil tenues à huis clos portant sur les sujets suivants. 1. Vente, parcelle de terrain.
So the one deals with that the council ratify the directives adopted at closed meetings of council concerning the following topics. 1, sale land parcels, Marché Street and Gauvin Road. 2, purchase land parcels, Burke Road reconstruction project. 3, engineering, architectural, and project management services, land exchange, 10-unit building at Melançon Road, NB Housing Corporations, adopted on January 24th, 2022. 4, amendments, partnership agreement, YQM County Fest, adopted June 27th. And 5, appointments, Kodiak Regional Policing Authority, adopted June 27th, 2022. All right, so motion by Conseiller Boudier and seconded by Councillor Brideau. Are there any questions? In favor, please indicate yay. Against, nay. The motion passes as presented. 10.2.1 now, ratification, 10.2.1 rather, renewal group insurance plan. So the council authorizes the renewal of the group insurance plan and the pool coverage with Assumption Life. So here we're talking about the renewal of the group insurance plan and the pooled coverage with Assumption Life as per the terms outlined in the letter for an estimated cost of $1,388,803. So an increase of less than 1%. So there are a number of changes or a number of services that are covered. So the recommendation is to authorize that agreement. And we have a representative here if you have any more specific questions. Oh, somebody turned their mic off. All right, let's start by reading the motion and then we'll see if there are any questions. So Ms. Turgeon-Roy, could you read the motion, please? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that the council authorize the renewal of the group insurance plan and the pooled coverage with Assumption Life as per the terms outlined in the letter and table submitted by Gauguin Champlain Financial Services, Inc. in July 2022 for the period starting August 1st, 2022 to July 31st, 2023 at the estimated cost of $1,388,000 and $803. So are there any questions or discussion? Ms. Godbout. Thank you, thank you, Your Worship. I had a few clarification questions. If I looked at page 101 of the package that was provided to us by the insurer, I want to understand the information that is provided in terms of short-term disability. We're looking at a fairly substantial change compared to the previous year. And I just want to understand, you know, are we reaching our target, and is the target, if we get close to it, is it a good thing or a bad thing? And I'm asking the question because, you know, we've negotiated the status quo, but things seem to be going up, and so I just want to make sure that I understand some of the table in that document. Mr. Droulet, Your Worship? Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Droulet. Thank you. So yes, in the past year, there were more claims for short-term disability. In the last 24 months, we've seen a greater incidence in New Brunswick because of COVID. COVID meant that there were so either people didn't show up at work because they had COVID, or there was the mental health impacts as well, more stress, more anxiety. So we noted that there were more claims for short-term disability in the last year. Now, is this a trend, an upward trend? We don't think so. We think that next year we should return to ratios that are below the 80% mark. But I mean, we can't tell the future with any certainty, but the trend that we're seeing is that there will be fewer claims. And that benefit is a benefit that will fluctuate from year to year. And when we noticed that with COVID, we had higher results than we would normally see. So let's hope that next year things go down again. Does that answer your question? Okay, but we're still underneath the target? Yes, a little bit beneath the target. And that's why we've recommended the status quo on the rate. Next year, we'll have a few years of data, and we should be closer to, we're relatively close to the target next year. Okay, that answers my question. Are there any other questions? No further questions? All right, those in favor vote yay, against nay. The motion as presented passes. Thank you for being there. We appreciate you're taking the time, so thank you very much. All right, 10.3.1, engineering. All right, here we're talking about provincial highways, and the province has changed its approach with regard to this file. We received that this year, the province is doing a lot of sealing of cracks. So the province is asking us to come up with a 5-year plan starting from 2025. So you have the motion in front of you, which prevents the deal, or what we're recommending rather. And we're looking at a 5 to 7 year window here, so a lot of things can change. And we think that the province will ask us on an annual basis to revisit these numbers, so we can change things. But for this time, we have to send these numbers before the end of the summer to the province. So that's what. All right, to read the motion then. Oh, you're all, Mr. Thibodeau, go ahead. I thought everybody was too shy to read this long motion, but that council approve the City of Dieppe priority projects under the municipal designated highway program for the 2025 to 2029 period as outlined below. So 2025, mill and pave Champlain Street from the city's western limit to Acadie Avenue, $2.15 million. Financing source, City of Dieppe, $963,200, and Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, $1,186,800. 2026, mill and pave, $1.9 million. Acadie Avenue from Champlain Street to Alain Gillette Street, and Amiraux Street from Melançon Road to Tuig Street. Financing source, City of Dieppe, $851,200. Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, $1,048,800. Asphalt preservation, $100,000. Crack sealing, Amiraux Street from Alain Gillette Street to Melançon Road, and Champlain Street from Acadie Avenue to Midland Drive, and from the Moncton Flight College to city limits. Financing source, City of Dieppe, $44,800. DTI $55,200. 2027, asphalt preservation, $3.4 million. Microsurfacing, Amiraux Street from Alain Gillette to Melançon Road, and Champlain Street from Acadie Avenue to Midland Drive, and from the Moncton Flight College to the city's eastern limit. Financing source, City of Dieppe, $1,523,200, and DTI $1,876,800. 2028, mill and pave, $2.85 million. Champlain Street from Lorette Street to the Moncton Flight College, and Amiraux Street from Fox Creek Road to Tuig Street. Financing source, City of Dieppe, $1,276,800. New-Brunswick Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, $1,573,200. 2029, mill and pave, $2.1 million. Amiraux Street from Fox Creek Road to Dover Road. Financing source, City of Dieppe, $940,800. DTI, $1,159,200. Asphalt preservation, $620,000. Microsurfacing, Champlain Street from the city's western limit to Acadie Avenue. Financing source, City of Dieppe, $277,760. NBDTI, $342,240. So motion presented by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Conseiller Liboutier.
On the question, Ms. Godbout? Yes, thank you. I have a question for the staff. What's happening with the assessment of the potential additional land that we will get under the amendments to the governance, the new local governance act? Because under this resolution, we're approving different projects here, but we're not taking into account these different, the amendments that will take place under the act and the new territories that will be part of Dieppe. So is this something that, I mean, it's not part of our land now, so we're not taking it into consideration in this resolution, or because but then when it is a part of the municipality, we'll have to look at it, or the way it reads, it seems that we haven't yet taken that into consideration, and I'd just like to know what the situation is. Well, in terms of the white paper and the recommendations for the lands that will become a part of Dieppe in January 2023, it's clearly indicated that the province will maintain all of the territories and land that have been annexed to the municipalities. They will remain an asset of the province, and they will maintain them. So that's part of the, that's in the white paper. We will have no involvement at this point in time. In the future, will there be changes? That remains to be seen. But the resolution then that is fine then the way it reads. And I think most of these roads are roads for which the province has the responsibility. So it's their roads. Yes, we use them, but they belong to the province. They're provincial highways. So it's their responsibility. And one of the questions I had asked the CAO when I received the material was, well, it seems to me that well, if things go on, if things happen the way that we hope, everything is going to be really good. I think the formula seems to be 55-45. So if it continues like this, that'll be just fine by us. So thank you. That'll be great if it continues. We'll see. Any further questions, comments? So all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. Carried as presented. Now, for operations, the purchase of 2 electric ice resurfacers. Yes, this is part of the improvement of the energy efficiency of the arena, Arger Leblanc. And so we had decided, council had given its approval. This was a partnership between ACM and the provincial government for the financial contribution to the project. And this is one of the elements of the project. It's the replacing of the ice surfacers to electric models. So what we have here is the wording of a contract. It's recommended that it goes to Saunders Equipment Limited for the purchase of 2 electric ice resurfacers for the cost of $352,770,000. And one of the 2 resurfacers will replace the older one that is dedicated to the downtown ice surface. And so we're going to recycle our own equipment, but we're going to replace them by electric machines at the arena. So this is the recommendation, and it's between the FCM and the city and the province. So to read the motion, Ms. Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. That council award the contract for the purchase of 2 electric ice resurfacers, Zamboni 650 model, for the recreational facilities sector to Saunders Equipment Limited at the cost of $352,770 plus HST, pursuant to the proposal dated June 28, 2022, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3-3-30-12-7607, General Capital Budget, AJL Renovations. And I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Ms. Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question? Mr. Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. These 2 ice resurfacers that are going to be replaced, have they come to their end of life? We will ask the specialist to share that information with us. Good evening. Good evening. Councillor Thibodeau. Yes, you're talking about a 2003 model and a 2008, the 2 Zambonis that will be replaced. And yes, they've reached their end of life. They've gone beyond their life expectancy, as a matter of fact. But under the new recommendations from the province on the air quality within arenas, a report that came out in 2014, it is highly recommended that we use electric Zambonis in order to reduce the level of carbon monoxide. Oh, I completely agree with that, but I was just asking if they have reached their end of life. Yes, they have. Well, that answers my question. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. I have 2 questions. There's a difference of about $16,000 between the 2 bidders. I don't want to go into all of the points, but the 16 points rather of difference. I'd just like to understand, was that spread out over the 5 criteria, or was there one criteria in particular that that differentiated one bidder from the other? The big condition was the after sales service and the availability of parts. There's a certain amount of work that we can do with our own mechanics, but there's a certain amount of specialized work, and that's where the big difference is. And we had history with one of the 3 suppliers as well. And I have a comment more than a question. If I look at the criteria for the evaluation, it's very specific. Quite often we say money talks, of course, and that's very true for the municipality as well. But it would be nice when we look at our policy on procurement, perhaps we should also look at do these companies offer pay equity? Are there other elements? Do they hire immigrants? Perhaps we should broaden our scope and we should look at things more than the financial aspect. And it's just a comment, but I know it wasn't part of the criteria used for the evaluation of this contract, but it's just a comment for the future. Thank you. That's an excellent comment. And we continue to advance on that front. Ms. Boutier, thank you, Your Worship. And it's just a question of information as well. I was just wondering if in the arenas, in both arenas, why do we need two resurfacers? Why can't we just have one and a backup somewhere? Because really, at the end of the day, it's easy to wait an extra half hour, or I mean, it's just a question of information here. I'm just wondering why we need two Zambonis, two resurfacers. Well, in an ideal world, yeah, we would have a half hour off between each group. You know, one group would end at 7:30, the other group would start at 8. But there's different games last different lengths. Sometimes it's 45 minutes, sometimes it's 50 minutes. It's hard to plan for the delay between. In a case of emergency or when we have a breakdown of one of the machines, yes, we have used just one for both ice services, but it's not ideal. If one of the games is late starting or late finishing on one of the ice surfaces, and then the other one has to wait, and it just becomes very, very complicated. Perhaps there might be some complexes of 3 and 4 ice surfaces. It might be different, but for two, with the best way to operate for us is to use two. And we had we did things differently at the beginning, but when we added the second ice surface in 2002, we've had the two resurfaces. But so I mean, we use only one when one has a breakdown, and we can coordinate it somewhat, but it's not ideal. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question on one of the details here. You say one of the best machines is going to be used for the exterior ice surface, but well, one of the older machines is going to be used on the outside surface, but the other one isn't going to be sold at auction. Yes, it's going to be sold at auction. Yeah, it's a public auction. And a used machine like this, how much is that worth in your opinion? Well, it depends on the years. Some years we got $2,500 for a machine that was 15 years old. And a few years later, we were offered a lot more for an older. It depends on the supply, the demand, on the years. Somebody who wants a Zamboni very quickly might pay more. Currently, we know that cars and so on are getting better prices. It's exactly that. It's the supply and demand. Thank you. Thank you. I see no further questions. So all those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. Carried as presented. Another purchase, this time we're changing sectors here. We're going to buy a tractor. Yes, this is with the synthetic field that's under construction. We had to, during budget discussions last fall, we had said that we needed to buy equipment to maintain the field. So we want to award the contract for the purchase of a tractor. And we suggest it goes to Nova International Limited for a Kubota L6060 for at the cost of $71,148. And we ask for a transfer of $100,000, and it's higher than the price of the tractor because there will be other equipment that will be purchased for the equipment that will be responsible for the maintenance of the synthetic field. And that's our recommendation this evening. Thank you. And to read the resolution this evening, Mr. Brideau. That council award the contract for the purchase of a tractor model Kubota L6060 for the recreational facilities sector to Nova International Limited at a cost of $71,148 plus HST, pursuant to its proposal dated June 28th, 2022, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3-3-20-12-7903 from the general capital budget, general equipment purchase, CLD. And that council authorize a budget transfer in the amount of $100,000 from account number 7-4-20-12-8920, General Capital Reserve Fund, to account number 3-3-20-12-7903, general capital budget, general equipment purchase, CLD. And I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Boudreau. I'm sorry, Councillor Brideau. I'm sorry, seconded by Councillor Lantaigne on the question. Mr. Lantaigne, do you have a question or did you want a second? Yes, thank you. I have a question. I'm just wondering why the extra $30,000 wasn't a part of the initial motion. I didn't understand your question, but I think it was why wasn't it all part of the same motion? Because it's not the same supplier. It's not the same supplier. It might be the same supplier. It might not be the same supplier. So we asked for options. We weren't satisfied with what was proposed, but we do need to purchase a sweeper, a brush, sweeper brush, and we call it a mechanical comb to brush the turf, the synthetic turf that we're going to have. So we're continue to do our research, and that's why there's this difference. But we will be purchasing those on time. Thank you. I see no further questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. And now we're in planning now, 10.5.1. Mr. Melançon. Thank you. And this is a recommendation from the PAC, the Planning Advisory Committee, on the acceptance of Dieppe Business Park subdivision amending tentative plan. This is on Principal West Avenue for an apartment building. And we want to widen the street to allow parking on the side of the road, and the PAC recommends the acceptance of this tentative plan. Thank you. To read the resolution, Mr. Godet. Thank you. That Council accept the Planning Advisory Committee's recommendation relating to the acceptance of the Dieppe Business Park subdivision amending tentative plan, which provides for the widening of a portion of Principal West Avenue, and I so move. It's been moved by Councillor Godet, seconded by Ms. Leboutier on the question. No questions. So all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. Carried. Carried as presented. 10.5.2, it's another PAC recommendation, Mr. Melançon, and this is a recommendation relating to the acceptance of the Fox Creek Village subdivision Unit 1 tentative plan, which provides for the location of Caleb Street and Karma Crescent, the location of local government service easements, as well as the location of land for public purposes. And the PAC recommends that you approve this evening. Thank you. And to read the resolution, Mr. Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council accept the Planning Advisory Committee's recommendation relating to the acceptance of the Fox Creek Village subdivision, Unit 1 tentative plan, which provides for the location of Caleb Street and Karma Crescent, the location of local government service easements, as well as the location of land for public purposes, and I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. No question. So all those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. Carried as presented. And 10.5.3, another recommendation from the PAC on the amending tentative plan for Rita Dorothy Billinger subdivision. And this is a subdivision close to Bourg Road, and it's according to the PAC, they recommend that we accept an amount of $3,560.22 in lieu of land for public purposes, which represents 8% of the market value of said subdivision land. And the PAC recommends the acceptance of it. Thank you. And to read the resolution, Mr. Lantagne. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council accept the Planning Advisory Committee's recommendation relating to the acceptance of the Rita Dorothy Bellinger subdivision, amending tentative plan, and further accept that the developer pay the amount of $3,560.22 in lieu of land for public purposes, which represents 8% of the market value of said subdivision land. And I so move it. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask somebody else to read it again because we couldn't hear you very well. And it's not a criticism, but it's the technology. So Mr. Brideau, perhaps? Thank you, Your Worship. That Council accept the Planning Advisory Committee's recommendation relating to the acceptance of the Rita Dorothy Bellinger subdivision amending tentative plan, and further accept that the developer pay the amount of $3,560.22 in lieu of land for public purposes, which represents 8% of the market value of said subdivision land. And I so move, Your Worship. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Le Boutillier on the question. On the question, Ms. Godbout.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will unfortunately have to vote against this motion. This is again a scenario where the market value is based on something before we authorize the subdivision. So we're setting that value before we go further. Now, I appreciate that city employees have did the assessment, but if we look in the documents, and I forget the page that we were on, but they're talking about the value at they're assessing the value of the land before there are changes that will increase the value of the land. So this is an indirect grant for development, and I think this is not clear. And I've said this many times, and I have to speak up stronger. But this is an indirect grant that we're giving to developers. We're evaluating the value of that land, or before granting the subdivision, which results in an increase. So and that's why I'm against this motion this evening. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Ms. Leboutier. I have an information question on the amount. So we'll be voting for 2 of these motions that involve 8% of the market value. And with respect to those amounts, I don't know if it would be possible, when the developers develop the land, would we be able to force them, and maybe that's too strong a word, but to indicate that there must be a certain number of trees, for example, on every time that we do something like this. That's just a suggestion that I would like to see in the future in circumstances like these ones. So that amount, that flat rate, should go towards planting trees to increase the number of trees in the municipality, and also for the developers as well. So, Mr. Girard, do you have a comment? Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Do you hear me? Yes. I just want to respond to the comment from Councillor Godbout. I think it's important to note that there is no rezoning or changes to zoning. we're just talking about a subdivision here. So we're dividing this land into two, and now there will be two facades, one that gives on to Dieppe Boulevard, and the other property will also look onto Book Road. So, and I share the same view that the evaluation is a bit low, but we follow the procedure. We assess the value of the land, and now I agree with you that the assessment is low, but at the end of the day, that was the figure that was come up with, that they came up with, and that was recommended by the PAC committee. So thank you. Ms. Godbout, oh, I don't want us to start a debate, but I'll let you reply to that. Yes, thank you for that. And I was referring to rezoning, and that's thank you for the clarification. But what I want to get across is that when we issue a permit, regardless of the type of permit, before there's actions that take into it, but I appreciate the information that you gave. So yes, it may appear to be an incentive, but if we change the formula and our competitors don't do that, we might put ourselves in a situation where, in a deficit situation, and it could have an impact on development too. No, I'm not saying that just to start an argument, but it was just an observation. So as long as we're transparent, exactly. So if there are no further questions, those who are in favor indicate so, against nay. So it's a no for Councillor Godbout. And the motion passes. 10.5.3 PAC recommendation regarding Rita Dorothy Bellinger subdivision. All right, here again, this is for public utility. We're talking about an amount of $15,000 and $55. And so there's the motion for your consideration. All right, Ms. Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council accept the Planning Advisory Committee's recommendation relating to the acceptance of the Alfred G. Bourgeois subdivision tentative plan, and further accept that the developer pay the amount of $15,054 in lieu of land for public purposes, which represents 8% of the market value of said subdivision land. All right, motion tabled by the councillor who just spoke, seconded by Councillor Bilodeau. On the question, Mr. Gaudette. Thank you, Your Worship. On page 127, so that land goes from Book Road to Dieppe Boulevard. It'll cross the whole, and it's a wooded area. Yes. The houses that are to the south, the Moulin Street. Does that land belong to anyone? Mr. Girard, could you answer? Well, Mr. Godet, the subdivision plan that you're referring to is for the case that we just discussed. I'm just trying to kind of find my place in the package here. I think there's a creek or something behind. Yes, there's a body of water that is to the south of the parcel in question. And there's also a buffer zone of 30 minutes, or 30 meters rather. All right. Well, another question. I find it's a great piece of land. It's a beautiful piece of land. Would it be possible to have a pathway going through there instead of giving the 8%? Well, again, the question here is that, it was recommended that we accept the money instead of, in lieu of land for public purposes. The buffer zone around the creek is protected by provincial regulations to a certain extent. But at this point, the recommendation was to accept money in lieu of a part of a piece of land. All right, another question then. The width of that land, are they, if they put housing or units on both sides, will there be any land less or left to create a path? Because it's a really beautiful piece of land. And would it be possible to build a trail in? I don't know how many feet that it takes that a trail would take, but is it possible to do that? Or it wouldn't be wide enough? Well, at this point, I don't have the information for you. This was a recommendation that was submitted by the recreation sector, and they were recommending that we accept money. So I'm not sure if that exercise was done to see if a trail could be put in. But in this case, they wanted the money instead of land for public purposes for this parcel of land. I would also add that, now I know it's not shown clearly on the card or on the map, but at page 150 or 126, I don't know if we can come back to that, Councillor Godette. Well, it's not, I'm not sure what the card or what the map is showing. All right, is that everything? Okay, thank you for the questions. Are there any further questions? Without, just a clarification, was the market value established in the same way? Yes, it was a professional evaluator who looked at that piece of land, and they arrived at this amount of money that you see in the motion. And again, it's based on value before the subdivision. Okay, yes. Those in favor of the motion, please say yay. Against, nay. So it's a no for Councillor Godbout and Godette. The no has been recorded, but the motion passes with majority of the council. And that brings us to item 10.6.1 for interpretation services. So here you have a recommendation to hire Nathalie Wilson at an estimated cost of $82,000 plus HST for a 2-year period to provide interpretation for our public council meetings. We invited 3 bidders, 2 submitted bids, and this was the one that was recommended by the evaluation committee. So it is supposed to be put in place for the next meeting in August. All right, for the reading of the motion, Ms. Boudreau, could you read the motion? That council award the 2-year contract for the procurement of interpretation services at public council meetings to Nathalie Wilson at the estimated cost of $82,000 plus HST, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account 1-2-20-10-2075, General Operating Budget Interpretation Services. Motion, I make the motion, seconded by Councillor Godette on the question. Ms. Godbout. Thank you. Two small questions. There's a distinction, pointing, like a score that there's quite a difference between the story. I just want to know what the main reasons why this that placed Nathalie Wilson 25 points higher than the other bid. What were the what was the basis of the counts? Mr. Daigle, do you want to provide an explanation?
Un instant.
One moment, please. And I have a second question as well. Oh, well, maybe we could do the second question first then. Okay, go ahead. My second question is, I appreciate the due diligence that was done to find someone who does quality work. What measures are being put in place to assess the quality of the interpretation? What measures are going to be put in place in 2 years to assess the quality of the work? We will be looking at the quality. The public will also have an opportunity to provide feedback, whether it's in French or English. So those are measures that we will be putting in place to make sure that the quality is maintained and it maintains and that it continues. I think it's important to have public feedback, because when we're in a situation like COVID where we can't show up on site, we're very dependent on quality interpretation. And so I'd be interested in the next 2 years when we do the assessment, what the means used were used to assess the quality. Go ahead, Mr. Daigle. Mr. Daigle, we can't hear you. Is there some mic that I should be turning on? Now you can hear me? Yes. All right, to answer Ms. Godbout's question regarding the score, there were certifications that were recognized at the provincial and federal level. That was a factor. And the other factor was the evaluation of videos. We had asked audio rather than video. We had asked the interpreters to provide samples. So that was why the scores were so different. Right, thank you. Any further questions? All right, those in favor of the motion say yay. Against nay. The motion is presented as presented. So that brings us to item 11, municipal bylaws. There are none tonight. Notice of motion, no notices have been received. And that brings us to item number 13, everybody's favorite item, inquiries and announcements by members of council. And I think we'll start to my right. So Mr. Lantin, you're on.
Pas le job.
Is my sound better? Not really. Okay, well, I have nothing to add except I wanted to wish all the councillors a great summer, and as well as staff those. Thank you very much. So if we understood clearly, you're wishing everybody a safe and happy summer. All right, I think we got it. Thank you. Ms. Godbout. Thank you, thank you, Your Worship. I just had the request from a resident who had a question about the dog park. There was a comment in the dog park. From what I hear, it's very well used, and I'm very happy to hear that. And there are holes that are being created. I'm being told that dogs are digging a lot of holes, and that results in puddles. And when it's nice out, there's no water in the park, but so anyways, I don't know what the plans are or the intentions are, but is this something that we maintain, or is this something that we're asking volunteers to do, and or is this something that's even common in dog parks? I'm just asking. I thought it was a good question, and I thought it was something that we could look at. So I throw the question out like that. I don't know if we have. I don't know if it's a natural part of a dog park. Does anybody, Mr. Richard or Mr. Book? Very good question. I'm going to follow up to see to have more information. We have a few volunteers helping us, but that's not part of their tasks. Like the maintenance is not part of their work. It's staff that does that. So I'll follow up to see if there are best practices in other dog parks that we could emulate. All right, thank you. And I want to wish everybody a great summer as well, to all the residents and council. Inaudible. The microphone is not working. Inaudible. The interpreter cannot hear the speaker. The interpreter apologizes, but there is no sound coming to the coming from the speakers.
Pour le mot d'ouverture.
Now, for the opening, were we considering changing the opening in order to add a land acknowledgement? The question of the indigenous land acknowledgement? Oh, no. Is there something set up? There has been set up already, Mr. Richard? There is a field set up for the first part of your question. There's a field. It's not a big field necessarily, but I think there are nets and field there for volleyball. No. And for the second question, we had received an email stating that we were going to look at it, but we are focusing on day-to-day maintenance, and we'll come back with an update on that file on your second question. Now, in terms of the Aboriginal and Indigenous land acknowledgement, I think just a couple of weeks ago we talked about it, and we're going to look at this to see how we can do it properly, and we'll come back to you this fall with something. Yeah, and from my question, I saw that we were supposed to have a tool to follow up on the reduction of greenhouse gases. For example, we were supposed to have a website that was called actionghg.com/Dieppe. And I can see, I noticed that it's not up yet. It's not working. Is it something that's going to update it? It's a website that's supposed to allow us to follow our greenhouse gas emissions here in the city? Mr. Duguay, Madam, Ms. Duguay, or would you like to answer the question, or Mr. Girard? No, it's not from communications, no. Well, for me, I can check to see if the website is working or not. The greenhouse gas reduction project was launched in partnership between FMNB and the city of Dieppe, and there was a document prepared by a consultant on this. Now I can check to see if the document can be made available on the link. But generally speaking, the follow-up is done on a yearly basis. So there's a yearly update made to council on the different initiatives taken by the city in order to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you. Thank you. And I'd like to wish a great summer to all staff, councillors, and to the residents of Dieppe. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Leboutillier. Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to report this evening, but same thing. Have a great summer, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I received a call from a citizen, and their question was, I know we have a bylaw on dogs, but let's say you have a dog that barks continually, and what happens if you report it to the city? What happens? What are the steps taken? Thank you for the question. We have an agreement with the SPCA Moncton on dogs. So you can call the city hall or call, and I think we'd have to check on the website, but I think we do have the SPCA contact information. So you can call them directly. And I think it's the service is open 24/7. So if a dog is barking all the time, you can call. And thank you. And I'd like to wish everybody a wonderful summer as well. Thank you. And me too. I'd like to wish all our staff, our citizens, everybody in the area, in the region, I'd like to wish you a wonderful hot summer with a little bit of rain once in a while, though, just to make sure that we maintain our water levels as necessary in order to ensure sufficient water for our citizens. But I'd like to wish everybody a great travel season, but be safe. And for those who are using our roads and on the roads where others are biking, just remember that you have to maintain a 1 meter distance, unless I'm mistaken. I think it's 1 meter of distance. And bicyclists are being seen more and more on our roads and across the province. And we want to live healthily, but we want to live basically. So we ask you to be careful. And so have a wonderful summer, everyone. And in our case, we will be here on the first Monday in August for the next meeting of council, unless there's an emergency. Thank you. Sorry, the second Monday of the month of August. Yes, second Monday. Have a great evening.